Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Boop, boop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
And tonight we got a special guest in the house from the Gasser Garage, Mr. Randy Jackson. What's going on, man?
Sitting here in the air.
Sitting in the AC.
Excited to finally get you on. I've tried a couple of times, and then people say, oh, yeah, man, I want to come on. And then they don't. And then it's day of, and I'm like, I can't call them now. But just getting schedules. And I know you were working, the last time we talked on the phone, you were working on some cars that were getting ready to get close to completion. And I know you had the Mid-Arc Drags was last weekend, right?
The Midway Drags was last weekend, and we didn't have thousands of cars or anything at the time, and we had good quality cars there. So it was a good event. We're going to do it next year again. It's just we haven't got a date settled or anything like that. It'll probably be somewhere typically the second weekend of June or first or second weekend of June is when we do it. So
awesome.
But we're obviously the tracks, they're kind of a dictator when it comes to that.
Ted form. Yeah, with shows or races or anything like that, you're kind of at the constraint of we're figuring that out right now while we're trying to put together our year show, our cruise or whatever it's going to be. But trying to find people that'll allow you to do stuff is sometimes hard.
Yeah, it's very true. They got schedules they have to keep, and we're not the only ones that, a vintage race is most of the time like the last thing that the track wants to deal with, because it's not a big payout, and we don't have money in our race. It's it's bragging rights at the end of the day. Who's going to get the trophy,
right?
Now they're really cool, but at the end of the day, many years ago, figured out when money gets involved in a car race, things get real snippy real fast, and so we just try to keep it low key, much like the Ham Drags. The Ham Drags was very good for many years, and in fact I only live like 3 miles from Mocan Dragway, which was the home of the Ham Drags forever, and I've been to every one of them, and so it was I like the low key atmosphere of that, and that's what we try to do at the Midway Drags.
Yeah. It's awesome just to get together. Old school cars, old school racing. It's always a good time to get together with people that kind of share that same passion.
Yes, and that's a lot of it right there. And it's like hanging out with all your friends at the racetrack.
Mm-hmm. It's always a good time. So,
I fun my car, but I took parts off of it to help another guy out. Motor, the event, you don't always get to go run your car. Now, I would have run my car if it had started and run, but I think the fuel pump took a dump, and it's good.
Old car shit, man.
Right, race car stuff. People think that man, you're gonna have to work on them.
Oh yeah. So what got you into this crazy obsession?
Man, this is all I've ever known my whole life. My dad, his first car is a 42 Willys sedan with a 392 Hemi, 2 4s, and a 4-speed that he built when he was 15 years old. His brick mason, and my dad just did it. It wasn't like he's a very innovative guy and always thinking. Now, I actually know where that car is, and I'm currently trying to buy it. Eventually I'll get it bought, but it's more of and the car's not good by any means, but it's that car. And my dad verified it before he passed away, so I know it is the car. And I've actually gotten, the guy that owns it, he knows my dad, and he grew up with him and all that. So he knows whose car it is, and he'll never build it, but doesn't want to sell it either.
Yeah.
Goes, so.
Well, I've talked previously in episodes about the S10 that me and my dad bought, and I tried to buy it, and the guy wanted retarded money for it when I first asked him. And then he wrecks the car, wrecks the S10, puts a new front clip on it, does a retarded cage. Like, I have no clue what he was trying for, but it was very ineffective what he was going for. And then he wanted less money for it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come up and get it. And then he was like, oh, that's rolling, which it wasn't the same motor anyway, but that's rolling, no wheels and tires, no this, no that. And he started just pulling parts off of it, and I was like, well, I'm not paying that much money for a body of an S10. I mean, yeah, it's pretty and it means something, but doesn't mean that much.
No. Well, and that's kind of where this is at. We just haven't come together. It's not that he won't sell it.
Yeah.
I just haven't. I guess I haven't stepped up, and he hasn't come to real reality.
Well, I mean, everything's for sale, but, you know, the price to pay might not be worth it, and it'll eventually get there. Eventually he'll realize that he's not going to do anything with it, and somebody else should own it.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it will eventually get there. But back to the question, I've done this all my life. It's all I've ever known. I mean, my dad, I grew up in street rods, all through the, you know, and I say it's back as far as I can remember. And I'm 50, so I've been in it a long time. And there's pictures of me block standing on my dad's Roadster pickup, which is the first street rod our family had. And it was a Model T Roadster pickup. And my mom tells us the story. Even my grandma, when I grew up, I lived right next door to my grandma and grandpa. I mean, in a house right next door. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with a very good family. I'm very fortunate to have a good childhood, and people, you know, and I don't brag on that. I'm just very fortunate that I had that ability. Mm-hmm. I was taught how to run a lathe and a mill in the garage at home long before I went to school. You know, I took machine shop in class, and I was going to be a machinist, and I was going to have my own machine shop, and you know how things go. And what am I doing? Cars. And college, I tried, and I just found that, you know, chasing girls was more important than study.
Yeah, girls get in the way of cars sometimes. Well, you always come back. The cars always stick around. So,
yeah. So, anyway, I had a good childhood. You know, I grew up doing all this stuff. My first car was a Model T Coupe. I still have it. It's not really. Could it be bought? Yes, but it'd have to be a life-changing amount of money. Mm-hmm. And I don't really want to sell it. I would if somebody had a big pile of money, but it's not really for sale. And eventually, I'll actually. I drove that car for 25 years, and put 200 and some thousand miles on it. It's wore out. It needs everything, you know. I've had 37 different motors in it, not because they all blew up. Some of them did, some of them didn't, but I just changed it continually. Mm-hmm. The car always had a V6 Chevrolet in it. The very first one was a 229 cubic inch carbureted 2-barrel. That's what it was when I built the street rod, because that's what it was. And that car was, you know, had leather interior and jet black paint. And I learned everything I know building that car in the garage at home. And so I was very fortunate to have a dad and a grandfather that, even my uncles, you know, they were out there doing the same thing. It was a family-oriented deal.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. And I'm very fortunate to have that, because a lot of people don't get that. Mm-hmm. And I don't have no big PhD or anything like that. Everything I've done is experience, mm-hmm. you know? So I'm not a, ASE certified mechanic, but I'm going to tell you right now, I can diagnose the best of them.
There you go.
So
what's the car that got away? Whether you had a chance to buy it and deal couldn't be put together, or a car you sold and regretted it the moment it got left?
Well, that's I've been thinking about this for a while because I've owned 331 cars.
Holy shnikes.
Getting close to
I
Ken
still
Sainer.
have 32. Yeah, I know. We've had this conversation, so, and not all of them run and drove. Not all of them were complete. Not all of them. Some of them I bought and sold before I ever even brought it home. But that's just part of the game, Mm-hmm. But it's the one that I feel like I have one of each there. One that I should have bought that I walked away from was a 1970 AAR Cuda. It was a limelight green, 340 automatic, had the original motor, original fiberglass front end, and I walked away from it for $1,500.
That hurts now.
Oh.
The reason I did that is I wanted a 4-speed car. Little did I know at the time, because this was back in the early 90s, and you could buy those cars for nothing, And little did I know they made less automatics than they did 4-speed cars. And, that's the one that I should have bought that I didn't. But the one that I sold that I wish I had back was a 59 El Camino.
Okay.
And it wasn't a real cream puff car, but it was just a good car, It's like every other. At one time, I had 22 59 Chevys, and they were all station wagons and El Caminos. I still have the first station wagon that I bought, and I have a parts car. One of these days, I'll finish that car, put it back together. But I drag raced it. It was my. I just that I love that car. I love a 59 Chevy. But the El Camino, I look back and I have seller's remorse on that. At the time, I thought I was doing something good to benefit my life, which in the long run, they didn't turn out that good. So, Anyway,
lessons learned.
Lessons learned, man.
So you said you have a little over 30 cars. So currently, what is your favorite car you own?
I hate them all.
Equally?
Just be honest. The one that drives. The one that the most recent purchase, and that's the 2004 Pontiac Grand Am that I bought because it run and drove. It's my daily. Now, me and the race car, we're having a little tiff right now, I love my race car. I do. I love my altered wheelbase Mopar. It's got a supercharged, fuel-injected, alcohol-burning big block in it. It's a stick shift. I love it. It's called the Poison Ivy's Dodge. I've got a front-engine dragster. I love it. It's got a blown flathead Cadillac motor in it. Stick shift car on top of that.
Oh. That's unique.
Yes. It is. I love every car I have. I don't have a specific one other than the one that runs at the time. But you know how that goes. It's just
fair enough.
I've sit here and I thought about that for a while. I follow the show, so I sit and think about the questions you ask all the time, and I'm like, man, what is mine? I'm like, I think about this, Like, my Willys pickup, I loved it up until about a month ago. We don't see eye to eye right now, but that doesn't mean that I hate it. It's not that I don't plan to get rid of it. I'll just fix it, Yeah. But it's the way it goes, Old cars.
And the way you
have to work on them all the time.
And the way you described every single one of those cars is why I like old cars, because they have a soul, they have a personality.
Yeah, every one of them are that way. In my opinion, it's all about one one will be just the most hateful thing in the world, and the next one will just love you to the day you die for a while, and then it's gonna just get tired of you driving it, and then it's the soul.
Yep. Yep.
So
unlimited budget. What car would you build?
that's another one I've been thinking about. I would do the most. People would hate me. 1937 Bugatti Type 57 Atlantic, and I would build the most. That car's worth. There's only like a handful of them in the world. Okay, and they're all museum quality restored. But I would just cut the crap out of that car and build me a hell of a hot rod.
Hell yeah!
It's just they have the most glorious styling, the way the bodies are riveted together. It has a spine down the back of it. Look it up on the internet. That car is just amazing. That or a round door Rolls Royce. There's 4 of them. It was ever made. It's like you say unlimited budget. There it is.
That's the caveat. The weird.
It's not a Lamborghini. It's not a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a GT40 or all that stuff is cool, but I want that odd thing. I would just love to go hang out with Jay Leno because he's got the most obscure taste in cars, and I love it. That guy. I would just love to go hang out with him.
Oh yeah, definitely. The odd. You're not going to see one. If you pull in somewhere, you're going to be the only one. And quite possibly everybody's going to ask what it is because they've never seen one.
Well, and see, that's my whole life has been that way. Everything I've had has been different, Yeah. My Model T Coupe, I never chopped the top on it. Everybody's like, why didn't you chop the top? I'm like, because everybody else does it, and I chose not to.
Yeah.
I like the different things in the world. I built 32 Fords. I have a 34 Ford Coupe. It's, a pile of rusty parts right now, but it will be a car. And in the near future, on top of that, because me and Zach from Wired Customs have a little plan, which I need to get in touch with him anyway, but to get things scheduled. But yeah, it's going to get a haircut.
I was going to say, if it's going to Zach Parks, it's about to get chopped.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. It needs a haircut. It's going to get a haircut. So.
Funny thing is, the 29, it's a Murray body, so the fuel tank doesn't come out the top; it comes out the front. And
oh yeah.
So I called him, and I'm like, man, I'm on the struggle bus. I'm the first one to admit I don't know a whole lot about Model A's, but I'm just winging it, and it does not look like this tank comes out. And he's like, the tank comes out. And I was like, it doesn't look like it. He's like, there's a seam. And I'm like, there's not a seam. And he's like, oh, well, then you're going to have to pull the motor and you're going to have to pull it out the front. And I was like, I don't like that idea either, but if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. And he's like, oh, when are we chopping it? And I was like, I got to get the car together so I can at least see where my head's going to be before we start chopping. He's like, you could chop it now. And right. Every time the 54 gets brought up, when you bring it up here, we can chop it.
Yeah, I like a good chop. And I've chopped a few cars in my life, and I'm not proficient at it as he is by far. He could probably do it in his sleep, but there again, I could build an altered wheelbase Mopar or a front engine dragster with my eyes closed. So.
Oh, and that's
chassis work is really kind of my thing. I like the construction of the car. When it comes to paint and body, I can do it because I painted my Model T and it's black and it is arrow straight. But I learned real fast I don't like doing it. There's a guy for that, and it's not me.
Yeah, I've said it numerous times. If you get a group of friends together and one guy's good at this and one guy's good at that, y'all can build some cool ass cars. I mean, that's why I'm not building the chassis on the Model A for the Model A.
We got a guy for that.
And well, that car's gonna piss people off when it's done. So
that's good. I wish I've got a pretty good group of friends around me that if I need something, they'll come over and help. I'll go help them. I mean, we're pretty good here, but I wish that we could do it a little more regular than what we do. And we're all busy. I mean, life is that way.
Oh, adulting sucks.
We all have too many. Yeah, adulting sucks.
Yeah.
Growing up, and you think the worst things about adulting, paying bills and all. No, it's deciding what are you going to eat for the rest of your life, and it's just stupid things.
Yep. And that's why we started this, was to try to grow it, not just here, but, show that, hey, go out to these cruise-ins. If you're interested in this shit, get out. And if you come with respect, get invited into these groups, and then you can have a cool car too. Maybe you're a fantastic interior guy and they're looking for one, that's the kid that's building the chassis for me, BP Customs, the emblem in the corner right there. I've known him for probably 10 years, but it was an acquaintance. Like, I knew him, he knew of me, but we never really got anything together. And I went to go talk to another kid, and our ideas didn't quite line up. And he's like, well, I can't get to it anytime soon, but what about this kid? And I was like, I'll swing by and ask him. Swung by, I said, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. And he's like, hell yeah, let's do it. So.
Well, absolutely. I think everybody needs to get together with their buddies and do things. I mean, I'm going to have to find me some more friends, because running a front engine dragster by yourself is impossible.
Yes.
But my buddies, they built dragsters, so now they both have cars. So we had to get some more friends to go run our cars, because we all want to go race. It's race each other. It's not. It's all about having fun. It's not about who's the fastest one. Mm-hmm. It's just about getting to go and hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I like, hanging out with my buddies. Whether we're at a car show or a drag race or whatever,
That's what this is all about, is the community.
Yep.
So what show or event do you try to make every year?
I don't know. I've got a few. There's a couple things that me and Misty do every year. Is we go to the Stray Cat 500 in Dewey, Oklahoma in May. It's something that she likes to do every year, and she used to do with her dad. And so I go to support that. It's a car show. I love the people. I've known them my whole life. I know all these people. But that's the one I probably do every year, is to hang out with her to do that. Because she follows me around the country going to all these other race car things and traveling everywhere to whatever thing that I go to. So I try to give back to her, let her pick one. And she picks more than one, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, she's got her own cars. She's got she's getting to the point where she has as many as I do. Getting close, but it's not. Yeah, she's got a 53 Chevy and a 75 Chevy pickup and, step side. And she names all of her cars. She's got a 59 Studebaker wagon. She's got a 49 Chevy 2-ton truck with a Cummins diesel in it that we're building. I mean, so, it's, she got a lot of stuff. Of course, I'm the one doing most of the work, but, she got, I like, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be going and doing anything.
Yeah.
Because she's the support,
Yeah, so. I was fixing to say, it's good when the significant other supports your obsession and wants to help. Because especially, this is Ashley and me's first, ground up. And this is probably no, this is as deep as I've ever went. Like, to start from just a body that's still needs work. And there's times like I come home and I have all these plans, like, all right, I'm going to get this done tonight. I'm going to get this done tonight. And then I get home and it's like, I eat supper and it's like, I don't feel like going out there. And Ashley will be like, hey, at least let's go get, like, tonight we'd finish getting the paint off the motor, because the dude that I got the motor from painted it like ruby red. It looked like a cherry exploded on the side of the engine block. So, and he painted everything. Spark plugs. He painted everything is bright red. So.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you guys do that. And here's the thing. Misty doesn't always, she does. She likes coming out and helping, but it's not something that she's a computer person. So I just make sure that the cars work, you know, at the end of the day. And that's kind of that's my deal. But she takes care of a lot of other things that you don't see to allow me to be able to do what I do, you know. So
it's good to have the
rock. It's a 50-50 split. That's right. Yeah. And I couldn't go run race cars without her, because she's the one that helps start the car and helps me get buckled in, and, you know, make sure helps me pack the parachute. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into that stuff, you know?
Yep. So is there a show that you've never been to that you would like to go to, or event?
Well, there's a couple that I would like to go to. I've never been to the Detroit Autorama. I'd like to go just once to say I've been there. Mm-hmm. I've been to the Grand National multiple times. I even had a car in at the Grand National years ago, the Bonneville car. That's another story we can talk about in a minute. That we were invited to be in the building with all the Bonneville cars when they had it in Building 9 out there, because Building 9 at the Grand National Roadster Show, they changed the theme every year. This year it was the Pro Street era. Excuse me. But they had a Bonneville deal, and we were invited to be in there. And the car that I built was a 38 Chevy Coupe with a blown injected flathead Cadillac. I didn't build the engine, I built the car. I knew everything. I started with a rusty car, and in 7 months I had a full-blown painted done race car. It was a lot of work. I mean, I got paid to do it by the car owner, but at the end of the day, I worked for free.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I got rich doing it. People think you got all these old cars. You got to have all kinds of money. No, we're just broke people that it's where I spend all of my money and time.
It's like that little
and we
kid.
do it because we love it.
I make bad financial decisions.
I see that meme all the time. I'm like, yep, that's me.
You got
100%.
You got $23 in your bank account. Not for long. I make bad financial decisions.
Look at that rusty Krager over there, or look at that magnesium wheel. And I got these fetishes that are expensive. Mm-hmm. I got expensive taste on like a water budget, man. So.
Well, we even caught ourselves. We'll be going down like the road or whatever, and we'll be looking in people's backyards for like rundown cars or whatever. And we would have just bought something, and he's like, "Nope, we can't be looking in people's backyards anymore. We're beyond that point right now."
Oh, and it's always the law of averages that says right when you buy something, everything pops up like, "Oh, that's a good deal. That's a good deal."
Yep.
Yeah. I just need an unlimited budget to be able to finance all that stuff.
Yeah.
My dad always told me, it's only a deal if you can afford it. Doesn't matter how cheap it is.
Yeah.
If you don't have the cash to pay for it, then it's not a deal. Doesn't matter how good a deal it is. It's not a deal if you can't afford it. And there's a lot of truth in that.
Oh yeah.
As much as I hate to admit that, it's true. You know.
Yes, sir.
I've had to walk away from quite a few things in my life for stuff because I just couldn't afford it. And I don't have a credit card, so I don't have credit card debt. I
Same.
don't really. I mean, my house, that's my expense. So pretty much what I do. My daughter's raised. She's got her own family and all that. So I kind of got it pretty easy. I'd say easy. I worked really hard to get where I'm at.
Yes.
There's lots of, and I still work 12, 14 hours a day. I don't, it's not, I don't sit around. I don't watch TV. Somebody could ask me what's on TV, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I don't watch it. I'm too busy. I'm going to the garage.
Mhm.
I can go out in the garage and just sit there and just stare around and look at the stuff in there and go, man, this is awesome.
Yep. That's what it's all about, is being able to step back and look at, because it's stuff that, they're not making anymore. Even repop stuff isn't the same.
No,
And-
you're 100%.
Every rust or every hole or every, wrinkle or anything like that, it's a story.
I don't throw anything away. I mean, and I'm not a hoarder. People's like, oh, you're a hoarder. No, hoarders. I'm gonna lay a definition out here, and it's probably not the actual definition because I don't read the dictionary either. But a hoarder to me, and this is my opinion, obviously, a hoarder to me gathers stuff and just piles it up, but never does anything with it.
Mhm.
Everything that I've collected over the last 40 years, and yeah, I've got some stuff I've had for 40 years, but I have a plan. I will use it. I do use it. Sometimes I might only use it for a while because I decided to change and do something else, but I just put it on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Will I sell it? Yes, I would sell it, but it's going to be at a fair market value. I'm not going to give it away because if you give it away, getting it back is going to cost 10 times as much.
Especially now.
Yeah, and it's really bad in the last 4 years. And I say this, in the last 4 years, the cost of living has tripled.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. It doesn't matter if you're going to get a hamburger or you're building a hot rod. The cost has tripled.
Oh, yeah.
I used to go buy, you could build a small block Chevy, a basic, run-of-the-mill stock replacement, small block Chevy. You could go down to GM and buy one for $1,800 and have a 3-year, 100,000-mile warranty on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's impossible. That same motor, it's not available anymore at GM because they went away. Everything's LS, but because that's out of their thing. But that same basic motor, that they call them a Target motor. 350 Chevy that was a 290 horsepower, carbureted, whatever. That same motor now, it's $6,000,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tripled.
Oh, yeah.
I used to think, $10,000 to build a motor is too much money. You could have a top fuel motor for 15. No, top fuel motor is about 50. But the average build motor is $10,000 to $12,000. By the time you have machine work done and you buy all the parts, and it's horrible what it costs to do it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
people think,
I just put in a partial order. It's almost everything I need to put the small block back together. And you're not telling stories.
no. Yeah, I just ordered. I've got this 40. I'm building a 40 Ford Coupe for some family friends that I've known my whole life in Indianapolis. This car, people call it the Carl Schunke Coupe because Carl Schunke's the one that owned it. He drove it to every Street Rod Nationals from the beginning up until a year ago when he passed away.
Jeez.
And his family, his wife and daughter, take it down there to the show now. Well, all I'm doing is just basically doing an upgrade on it because it was built in '63, and it had a 371 Olds in it with 2.4s and a Hydromatic, like a B&M Hydro stick, Hydro, early, automatic, 4-speed automatic. And in '71, he put a small block Chevy in it with a Hydro because the Olds motor was too rowdy for the street. It's got magnesium halibrands on it. It's you could just tell this car looks like it was built in '63. And it needed an update. So we're going to put some power steering, not changing the look of the car. We're not lowering it, putting a Mustang front end in it. Nope, it's got a stock straight axle, 57 Chevy rear end with long ladder bars. I just built a whole completely new chassis, identical to what was in it, only with fresher, newer parts. Overhauling the motor, the transmission, just making it mechanically sound. And it's ridiculous what parts cost.
Oh, yeah. And it's not, because I remember that motor you spoke of was the motor that we bought for my C10 in 2008 for right around that price.
Yeah, they were like $18.95. I can remember buying them for $900. Yeah. That's way back in the '90s, probably long before you guys were ever around.
Yeah, I was a couple years old in the '90s.
Yeah, what, the late '90s?
Late '90s. I was about 10.
Yeah.
I'll be 35 this year.
Yeah, well,
So
he got a little. He was in it for a while. So, but yeah, that's I sit here and I think about what, I'm not the old. I mean, I have friends that are either way younger than me or way older than me. I've got a handful of them that's my age, but for the most part, people my age, they're not into this stuff. I've got a handful that are. Most of them are either old people that's been doing it forever, or they're young ones that's wanting to get into it. And that's what I try to teach those guys. My dragster buddies, that's where I got them into this thing. And I just tell them I'm sorry. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because you're going to be broke the rest of your life. You got race cars.
Oh, yeah.
So,
but you can race a car. You can't race a house. So
you're not wrong. But, we all work together to get stuff. And we all have, and it's not just race cars. We all have hot rods. We all have 60s muscle cars. We all have, it's not, we all like doing this stuff. And we like cars in general. Everybody's like, well, what's your favorite kind of car? I'm like, I don't have a favorite one. It's the next one.
You got to narrow it down.
I don't know.
If it's
right.
I'm like favorite muscle car. Okay, I got that. Favorite this rod. Okay, I got that. But I can't. I would be hard pressed to pick one car. I want them all. It's like Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been multiple times called, oh, you're just a Dodge guy because you've got a bunch of Dodges. No, I bought Dodges because they're cheap. And I like the weird cars. I like that 62 to 65 stuff that the muscle car guys hate. They hate those early cars. They think they're ugly. I like the 62 Plymouth that looks like a spaceship. That's what I like because it's different.
Yep.
I've got 2 of those. My altered wheelbase car, it's a 64 330 sedan, which is like a Polara.
Okay.
But I've had 5 altered wheelbase cars. There's 63 Dart and a 65 Coronet that I owned 4 times. I had a 65 Satellite, or a Belvedere, that is 65 Belvedere. That was the first one that I actually completed. and I sold it before I ever got it done. Guy come by the house one day, seen it, and he had way too many $100 bills in his pocket. At the end of the day, that's what it boiled down to.
Oh yeah.
So I sold it. I never finished the car, but it was the most completed one I did up until the Dart, the 63 Dart. But that 65 Coronet, I've had that. I owned that car 4 times. And the guy that owns it now begged me to sell it to him. I didn't want to sell it, but he just had to have it. And the other day when I was talking to him, he's like, "You want that Coronet back?" It's what I need, another car.
Yeah.
You know? Like a hole in the head.
But me and my dad were talking a couple weekends back, and it's like, even the gentleman he bought his 34 from, oh, if y'all do something, let us know. Okay. And other people, you know, like you see them out, and it's like, I was like, we cruise every third Sunday of every month. Like, come out, bring your cars out. Like, I want to see your car. I want to talk about your car. Like, because everyone has a story. I mean, and Ashley's favorite, and it was the first memory in a classic car, was we took the 54 to a little car show, semi-local to us, and people coming over and saying, like, I learned how to drive in a 54. I took my wife on a first date in a 54. I did you know, those stories are what I like hearing from everybody. I mean, and I don't care if it's a van. I don't care if it's a Model A. I don't care if it's a mini truck. I don't care if it's a lowrider. Even if it's not my cup of tea, you dig it, bring it out, show it off, be proud of what you have. But it seems like, and maybe it's just the cruise is so new that we're not getting the traction that I thought we would. But it's like you see cars out and you're like, hey, you know, come hang out. We cruise every third Sunday. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll be there. And then they don't show up. And it's like, do you not like us? Like, do you not like driving your car? Was that the only time you drive your car this year? Like, but we're trying to get it bigger.
Getting people to admit to something sometimes is very difficult. You know, even our drag race is kind of like that. You know, you get people to pre-enter, which we don't ask for money up front. You know, I guess maybe that's what we should do. That way they're committed to be there.
Yeah.
But you get 100 entries and you might get 40 of those people to show up, actually. And it's horrible, but I understand people have things happen. People's motors blows up.
Fuel pump stops working.
There's life gets in the way.
Oh yeah.
You know, I get that. But it's, you know, it is what it is. You can't do anything to change it. Except all I can say is promote. At the end of the day, that's what everything is about these days: is promote.
And I get life
person in the world to do that because I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I get life. I get life happening, but my thing is like when my dad was, because my mom and dad were fortunate enough that they always had cool stuff, but it was always one at a time, and that's the same way we kind of do it. You know, you have. Which right now I have a bike and 2 hot rods, but
that's one thing.
You know, but we tried to like my dad, we had the race car got sold, and then he got into hot rods. Or vice versa. It was vice versa. He had the hot rods, started driving long distance, so he needed something a little bit better. And the hot rods went away, the race car came, bikes came, yada yada yada. But even the people that were back then were trading, like, they still have those cars. And it's like, hey, like, bring it out. And radio silence. It's like, to me, if you own a cool car, like, why don't you want to drive it?
No.
Which me and you have had that conversation in private. Like, people spend an S-load of money on their cars, and then they just look at them in a garage to say they own them.
Yeah, they do. It's amazing how much money people spend on cars. I see it every day because I actually work in a restoration shop, and I say restoration shop. We don't just restore cars; we build cars. I mean, we can restore your 1968 Dodge Charger, or we can build you like a current project we have at the shop. Isn't, believe it or not, a 1975 Ford Ranchero. Now, I never thought in a million years I would be building a hot rod out of a 1975 Ford Ranchero. But this guy loves Rancheros. He likes this body style. He's got more money in this car, and he wants it nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay because he can afford to do that. There's
Right.
a lot of expendable income in this world.
Oh yeah.
I'm fortunate to be able to get to be one of the cogs in the wheel that gets to collect some of that. I don't, I've put in my time working for the dealership, and I ran my own business for 14 years. There's a reason why I don't work for myself, because I don't want the hassle and the stress. Best thing I ever did was sold my shop, walked away.
Yeah.
For myself. I mean, it was at a point where I needed to hire somebody. I was so busy. I was doing a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to hire somebody, and I just couldn't see paying somebody else more than, which if you want somebody good, you got to pay,
Oh yeah.
which is the problem with the world today. But people don't want to work today. We have that problem we have literally just hired a body guy. We've been needing when I say a body guy, the guy that can, smear the mud, block, sand a car. He doesn't have to paint. He doesn't have to weld. He doesn't have to mechanically do anything. He just needs to be the body guy.
Yeah.
And we've needed that guy for 5 years. And this guy just walked in one day and just happened upon us. And he's good. We got a good painter. We got a fabricator. We got 2 guys, myself and one other guy there, that can fabricate and mechanically do that part of it very well. It was all on me for a long time up until the other guy was hired about a year ago. And it took a lot off of me in the business to be able to have somebody to count on. I can say, hey,
Yeah.
I need you to do this, and he can do it, But people not wanting to work, it floors me. And it's not about money. Money's not the real problem. Yeah, you're not going to start out at $40 an hour. I mean, hell, I've been doing this all my life. I don't make that kind of money. But people want to walk into a place and make $40 an hour. I'm like, what do you expect, man? If you made $40 an hour, I got to be making $100 because I've been doing it a lot longer than you have. And that's not going to work out either,
No, and we're in the world the way it is in a race to. I mean, the wages go up, everything else has to go up. You pay that truck driver more money, now your cost of goods goes up. You pay your McDonald's guy more money, now your Big Mac's $20. It's like they don't understand, and it's my generation or our generation and younger that don't understand, like, that shit flows uphill. Like,
yeah, it does. It rolls uphill. Just everybody says, "Oh, it rolls down." No, it goes up too. Because if you're going to make more money, it's going to cost more.
Yeah, and CEOs ain't going to take any less money, so that's going somewhere, and it's going to be the consumer that pays for it. Hence
That's
why
exactly right.
A small block Chevrolet from Jegs crate motor is now $6,000.
Yeah.
But
And it's fine. It's not, and it shouldn't be.
No.
There's no reason for it to be that.
No.
It's the cost of everything, and everything has went up
I forget what parts
3 times.
Was it a starter? or a water pump. Like,
Yeah. It's $100 for a $20 water pump.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and then it was Jegs. I was on Jegs, and I like small block Chevrolet water pump, and I don't need anything special. It's not. It's going to be a street motor. Maybe 300 horse, maybe. I'm not trying to build it to set any world records. It's never going to be a drag strip, but the car is going to be light as shit. And I want it at will to be able to roll a tire over in a parking lot. Like, that's
yeah, so it needs a supercharger.
We're going with 3 deuces because I don't have supercharged
Everything
money.
is better with a blower.
I agree with you.
You can put the 3 deuces on top of the blower. See?
I agree with you.
We
But the
need
way
somebody
my
to
bank
sponsor
account
that.
is set up, Hot Rod Hangout Podcast does not have the funds for a blown anything currently. But the chassis will be built for if I want to put a blower on down the road.
There you go.
And it's like, I was looking it up and I'm like, water pumps. Okay. Small block Chevrolet water pump. And I'm thinking 40, 50, maybe $60.
No, if
100.
you're buying it from Jegs, you'd spend that much money. You should be able to go to the parts store and buy that thing for $29. And no, it's $100.
And I'm like, well, and then was it, Edelbrock Victor Jr. water pump. If you ever want to get sticker shock, go to Jegs and look up Victor Jr. or Edelbrock Victor Jr. water pump. It's like $560 some. And I was like, that motherfucker better come in a box, put itself on the motor, put the motor in the car, and I better be able to not have to put gas in it. It better pump so much water that the pistons go up and down by themselves. Like, what is so special about this? Nothing. It says Edelbrock on the side of it.
I just don't. I mean, I understand that they do make a high flow water pump that does help in certain aspects. Most cars don't need that, and people. I guess I look at the best bang for the buck on everything because there's certain things that is cheaper to buy the part than it is to build it, and I'm a proponent of my Model T. I built the entire chassis. The frame rails are made out of 2x3 rectangular tubing that I bought at the scrapyard. I built all the 4-bar on the lathe at home. I bought the bushings from Pete and Jake's. I fabricated all the tie rod ends, the cross tube. I even made the I-beam front axle. I'm not kidding you. When I say I built everything, I mean everything. I bought a handful of stuff tie rod ends and stuff like that, but I did not buy anything for that car. I made it all. I cannot afford to do that today.
No.
I can't afford to go buy the material and sit out there and do that and build all that stuff for what I can buy it for. So there is a side of things that is cheaper, but it's not. But it all boils down to how much time you have, how you value your time.
I was going to say it's the value of your labor. At some point in time, you have to say, yeah, no. But you see it all the time, like, oh yeah, I got this much money in the motor, okay, or I got this much money in this car. And you're like, well, what about the 400 hours that you spent laying underneath of it and research and design and build and paint and bodywork and this and that? You didn't take any account for that. You have way more in that car than that.
Oh, yeah. And see, we, like at our shop, we do what we call a build sheet. Initially, guy brings a project in here. Once it's done, we sit down and do it's not an exact number. It is an estimate.
Yes.
And of what it takes to do the job. And most of the time, we've just kind of started this the last couple of years, but we've got pretty close. We can be within 10 or 20%, plus or minus. Most of the time it's plus, but you know, I mean, because everything snowballs. You make one change, it affects 15 things on the car.
Yeah.
One change can change 15 other things. So you have to take that into consideration. But we break it down in each section of the car. How are we going to do the suspension? What this is going to be? It'll give you the parts and the prices and all this stuff. I mean, it's very, very detailed.
Mm-hmm.
And the customer can sit down and look at that and go, well, this is just too much money. But he can actually see where it's going, how many hours it takes to do this, because they don't see it that way. They just look at it and go, well, it cost me $100,000 to build this car. Well, at the end of the day, let's sit back and think about how many labor hours in it versus what the parts cost is.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the project, when the shop only makes 10 or 12% on the entire project, it's hard to keep a shop open if you're only making 12%.
Yes.
You gotta, it doesn't matter if it's Walmart, if it's Dairy Queen, wherever, they're making money on everything. They have to, or they wouldn't be in business.
Yeah. And I was talking to BP Customs, and we were talking about, people coming in, and he's like, use the example of a motor. It's so hard to estimate, this motor's been freshly rebuilt. You go to fire it up and it wasn't, or a head gasket blows. And now, hey, that motor that you brought is junk. So there's another $10,000 motor that's got to be bought.
Yeah.
Or this or that, there's no rust on this body. Well, you go underneath of it and it looked solid from the top, but why is there a license plate holding the transmission in?
Yeah.
There's
that 68 Charger that we just finished up and delivered a week or two ago. That car was really nice, but we started with a really good car. That car, it's almost a $300,000 build, but we started with a $40,000 car to begin with.
Yeah.
However, we didn't have to put a floor pan in that car. It was just super good, and it was 100% complete. And people don't understand that, they spent $40,000 on a car. Yeah, but have you seen what 68 Chargers cost these days? You go buy, most of them are $20,000, and it's a rusty shell that needs everything.
Yes.
And they got no parts, no grill, no taillights. Granted, we did replace the taillights, but we used the stock grill.
Right.
We replaced a few things, but for the most part, we started with a good car, and the end result was it saved the customer money of all the rust repair that we could have done to that. The owner, our shop owner, has a 68 Charger in the backyard. It's a rusty bucket. It needs a roof skin. It needs quarter panels, floor pans. The bones are good, but it needs every piece of sheet metal on it. And AMD sells it all.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a dealer for AMD. We can fix that car. But this guy bought a $40,000 car that saved him money, because there could be $40,000 in metal work.
Oh yeah.
Alone.
Oh, I've said it on the podcast before. There's no such thing as a car too far gone. It just might not be worth what you have in it by the time you replace every panel on it.
Oh, it doesn't matter what car it is these days. I don't care what it is. You're going to have more money in that car by the time it's done than what it'll ever bring. That is just a fact.
Oh yeah.
People come into the shop and they're like, well, what do you think it would take to build this? I'm just going to a 75 Camaro. I'm just picking one because this was a recent thought. We got a 75 Camaro. I'd like to have it, repainted, rust fixed, blah, 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 interior, freshen up the motor. And I said, well, what's a new Camaro cost? And this was, I know you can't buy one new now, but let's just say This was last year. A new Camaro that has a V8 in it, and it's going to be 500 horsepower because, that's what they were. That car right there was $60,000, $70,000 to buy it new off the lot. It's going to cost that same money to build the car that you want out of your 75 Camaro. And they're like, well, that car will never be worth that. Well, probably not.
No.
But if you can afford to go buy a new car, you can afford a hot rod. It's fact. Your Model A, it's kind of the same deal. You figure out what a average two-door sedan, and a lot of it depends upon your options. There's a certain amount that it doesn't matter what kind of car it is. Chassis cost X amount, engines cost X amounts. It's yes, you can upgrade, but the basics of it's all still the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also on that same thing, a Model A, we'll use that as an example because that's the car that I'm building. 25, 30 grand will buy you a really, really, really nice Model A from somebody. Yeah. You can't build that really, really nice Model A for that. No. Now, if you put Rat Rod in the title, doesn't matter how nice it is. It could be a Ricky Bobby Dunn car, but if you put Rat Rod in the title, in the state of Florida, that's a $45,000, $50,000 car. And it could be shiny. But if you put Rat Rod, anything with Rat Rod in the title in the state of Florida is ridiculously more expensive.
Yeah, are they selling? That's the question.
Yes, they are. For that.
Wow, because that floors me. You put Rat Rod anything up here, and people hate you. That's a $500 rusty beater.
No, I don't understand it because there's a very, very clean, and also there's a distinction, and I don't really know what it. Because when I bought the 32 truck, the guy got really mad at me for saying that it was going to be a Rat Rod. And then I got to looking, and I'm like, and this isn't a dig at anyone, but like you go to a show, and it's like, it's not a Rat Rod. Well, it kind of is. It's still in primer. Yes, you didn't purposely put the spider webs. You didn't make welds ridiculously ugly on purpose. But it's an unfinished car. It's a Rat Rod.
No, you got that wrong. That's a hot rod.
That's a what?
It's a hot rod.
Right, but
I'm that crap all the time with my Willys pickup. It's half primered, half rusty. I mean, you've seen pictures of it. I get it all the time. Hey man, that's a Rat Rod. No, this is a hot rod. Hot rods, not all of them are done.
Right, and of the I get that, but what I'm saying is the gentleman that I'm referring to in that story would have fought you instead of just going, no man, it's a traditional hot rod and moving on. That would have ruined his whole day. Probably the whole week. You'd have probably heard about it the following weekend. It's not a Rat Rod. It's fine. Because like me, I don't appreciate or I won't say I don't appreciate. I love all cars. But like purposely making it ugly or putting the rubber rat places and the spider web welds to hold shit together that offer no function.
I know. Yeah.
I'm not into that. But a traditional car that still has surface rust on the frame because it hasn't been blown apart to paint it yet. Red oxidized primer because you haven't painted it yet. And and when it's done, it'll be a beautiful car. It doesn't make it any less beautiful when it's in that condition.
Well, I understand what you're saying there too. And Rat Rod is too generic of a term these days. People don't understand what a hot rod is and what a Rat Rod is. It's like you have to educate these people, and there is a strong following in the rat rod world, and they're just a work of art. Honestly, all these cars are works of art.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't matter if it's your Model A, my Willie's pickup, race car, the $300,000 '68 Charger we built. The whole point of it is they're all just a work of art. It's rolling art.
Mhm.
And it might not be my cup of tea for them guys to do it, but you know what? They're doing it. They're getting out there. They're working on their own stuff. It might not. Granted, I look at a lot of them and I'm like, I wouldn't drive that thing across the parking lot. And I drove some sketchy stuff. Okay. But wow, but
Yeah.
they did it. They did it themselves. They got out in their garage and they built it. And that's what I encourage everybody to do. Everybody thinks I'm a genius because I just know everything. I don't know anything. I don't know any more than anybody else. I just screwed it up bad enough to learn not to do that.
And a lot of hot rodding, that's exactly what it is. You did something,
That's all it is.
and then the next time you do it a
Everybody's
little bit better,
experience.
and the next time you do it a little bit better, and then finally, 20, 30, 40, 153 times later, then it actually looks good.
You're not wrong.
I have tried to weld in
people, it's like-
a patch panel on the Model A where I cut the filler neck off 3 times. And every time the welds get a little bit better. But right now the welder is blowing holes in the body because, 95-year-old metal.
Take your time, turn the welder down, slow the wire speed down. That people get too aggressive on how, I got to have this turned up high. On sheet metal, you don't have to have it that high. What kind of welder do you have?
It's the generic Hobart.
Hey, I got a Hobart handler that I use in my garage, and I've welded everything together with that. It's like a 140 amp, 110 volt deal. If you look on the inside, if you open up the side door on that thing where you put the wire in, it has a gauge in there. It tells you basic generic settings. And that will go a long ways about where to put the wire speed. Has it got like a 1, 2, 3, 4 on the heat
Yes.
setting, or has it got a dial?
It's got the 1, 2, 3, 4 A, B, C, D. It's the same. It's the generic version of a Hobart 140.
No. So essentially, if you do that, you can slow the wire speed down. Typically, like mine's got a dial on it, so it's an older unit. This thing's I've had the thing for 30 years. The one I have. It was one of the first ones that Hobart did. And it's at least 25 anyway. Typically when you're welding sheet metal, run it on about 2 and about 30 on the wire speed. And it won't blow holes in it. And you tap, 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 tap. And most of the people, that's what we do when we weld quarter panels on cars. It's a tack game.
Yeah.
Everything's a tack, 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 tack. You don't want to get it too hot. So it's tack here, tack there. Let it cool off. Walk away from it. Go get you soda. Let it cool completely off because you don't want to warp the metal. You warp it, it's going to be a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to give you some tips here, man. I'm not the welding genius that everybody, but I've experienced enough to know where to go. And I've built enough Model A's in my life and Model T's and all that stuff. So
I think I figured out part of my problem. I think I had the gas too low, but
that makes a difference too. You need to, make sure your gas flow is up there too, because it needs to, you got to keep the impurities away.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that gas is for.
So before we get out of here, what's one piece of advice you'd give somebody that's trying to get into this?
I think we talked about that just a minute ago. Basically, just get out there and do it. Just take a chance. Don't, ask questions. Go find the old guy, that has done this for years, and go hang out at their shop. Go have lunch with them on Saturday. That's one thing I do. When I'm in town, there's a group of old guys that have lunch, and it varies where it's at. one Saturday it might be here and it might be there the next week, but we got a text message that goes around, and I go have lunch with those guys, and it pretty much blows an entire Saturday. You show up at 11:45 for lunch, and it's usually about 3 when you get out of there. But you learn a lot. I absorb all that information those guys have because they've done it. They've been there. And then a lot of times it's like, well, why don't you come over here and look at this? I got this project I'm working on. So you go hanging out at their house. And I've had friends of mine hey, why don't you come to lunch one day? Trying to get them to be involved with this. And they're like, I just can't do that every week. It blows the whole Saturday. And I'm like,
but it's knowledge.
I do it because it's knowledge. And there's going to become a day that I won't get to be able to do this because I'm going to be that old guy. And then I want those younger people to come in there and go have lunch with me. I just go in there every Saturday and I just look at those guys as they're all sitting there and I go, you're welcome. And they kind of look at me a little funny and I'm like, well, they're like, what do you mean you're welcome? I'm like, I worked another week to keep your retirement, your pension check.
But it's true. I mean, that's the thing is a lot of the older guys that have all this knowledge are looking to pass it on to somebody that shows an interest that wants to learn.
Absolutely. You know how many times I go to lunch and I'm like, hey, what would you do here? You ask a question. Next thing, hey, why don't you come over to the house? I got something for you. And you go over there and you're like, oh, I can't afford this. I don't have you need this on your car.
Yeah.
And they want to pass it on just as much as you desperately want it. I've had that happen. It's not every week and I don't get it all the time, but upon occasion, and I try to do the same thing to younger people that, hey man, I've got this part. I mean, I'll just use an example. I got a steering box that you were talking about you needed. And I'm like, hey man, I got this. I'll be happy to sell it. This is what I got in it. Let's pass it on to you.
And when we get closer to needing it, I'll be hollering at you.
And I understand that. And it's not a pressing issue, but it's also, I'm not advertising it on Facebook either.
Well, and the bolt. I mean, I mentioned the bolt you sent me. I mean, you got me out of a jam because literally no one had that bolt.
Yep.
I know. And most people do what I do. They cut them off and they throw them in the dumpster. I just don't throw anything away.
Well, we appreciate it.
I don't know if I got any more, but I had at least one.
That's all I needed. I don't even think I used the bolt. I think I just used the nut.
And it didn't matter. It's like at this point you need
because it's a funky thread nut.
It's an Acme thread.
Yeah, what he said.
It's yeah. Just think Acme, like the Bugs. Well, you probably don't even know the Bugs Bunny.
Yep, I got
Wile E.
you.
Coyote.
The Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner. All right, well, Ashley, what's the dates?
Okay, yeah. So obviously, don't forget this Sunday, June 16th, is Father's Day, but it is also our monthly cruise. We're going to be meeting at Napa Auto Parts in Bushnell about 10:30, then heading over for barbecue and ice cream in Dade City. And that's the name of it.
Yes.
And then don't forget that's our only date.
Okay. Make sure you go give VP Customs a like, share, and follow.
And don't forget about Throttle Addict using the code word Hot Rod, and you get save 15% off.
Do you have anybody you'd like to shout out or thank or?
Oh, I got I could throw out a lot of them. I mean, I gotta thank my boss, Lyle's Performance. That's the company I work for, and he puts up with my crap every day. And I've known the guy for 30 years, so it's not like he's my boss, but he's also one of my best friends. And
awesome.
I gotta thank give a shout out to Misty Willie. She's if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't get to go do things. You know, there's just it's the way of my family. You know, I mean, obviously, I'm very fortunate, but I've got a lot of experiences in life, and we could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours on just a lot of things. And like the Bonneville story. Yeah, I set a record at Bonneville. Sometime we can maybe make another episode.
Oh yeah, we'll have you on again.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to do a lot of things in my life that I've gotten ability, and it's because of my dad. At the end of the day, him teaching me how to do things. And my dad never taught me any one thing other than the fact to solve a problem. He taught me how to solve a problem, and it doesn't matter what it is, I can do it. And that's a lot right there.
Yep.
So,
Yep, very cool. Shout out to all the dads out there that have got us into this and kept us broke for the rest of our lives. But with that being said, guys,
I'm sorry.
we appreciate you coming on.
Yes, thank you.
And until next time, everybody, get out and drive your shit.
See ya.
Later.